So I'm Isla McCulloch and I work at Co-operatives UK. I travelled on Thursday from Oban, which was about 9 hours on the train to get to Birmingham. So my role at Co-operatives UK is the, on paper, Community Shares Standards Manager. Community shares are an incredible way for communities and co-ops to crowdfund investment for a incredible variety of projects. And it's also an unregulated form of raising capital from the public. So we manage a voluntary regulation scheme that promotes best practice and community share offers. So I oversee all the standards and associated guidance materials for that. I also train and license practitioners around using community shares and the community share standard mark. And I lead on the market intelligence and data of the community shares market at a UK level. I really value across the piece the opportunity to meet people in person. I spend so much time, I work at a UK-wide level, and I have built incredible relationships with people who I've never met in person. That is the beauty of our organisation, it's the beauty of the modern world, but it's absolutely brilliant to spend time in person with people and you just connect in a different way. Online interactions are great. Like I said, I've built great relationships, but it's a bit more transactional. Whereas these events, just an opportunity to be together, just get to know each other in a different way, cuddle. I think it's really, really important to have these regular check-ins in person with folk and meet people who I don't know as well, but really to just cement those relationships. We can't, as individuals, solve our collective problems. It's just impossible. We have to work together. We have to find a way to work together. And while that takes many forms, the cooperative values, principles, models provide templates to do that. Provide guidance, provide a network, provide solidarity, provide a structure to say, how do we work collectively to address our collective problems, instead of everybody wondering what type of shopping bag to bring to the supermarket, or this focus on individual actions to tackle climate crisis, housing crisis, etc. I think doesn't go anywhere. We need to work collectively. So that's what I love about the co-op model. It's actually practical solutions. There's huge wealth extraction happening in our economy, in our communities, and there's big political crises hitting different sectors and different communities from different backgrounds. So the opportunities are to collectively organise, and so much of running a co-op or community co-op is the campaign part of it. It's not just the trade, it's not just the business, it's the campaign, it's the reclaiming power, and then doing that in a sustainable way through setting up a cooperative business or starting to run things yourselves. We talk about race being a dividing factor, and how do you bring together different community groups to agree on the best way forward if you have competing interests, if people perceive a threat to their existing positions or power. So what I'm mindful of with co-ops is that they don't exist in a vacuum, and they still reflect societal hierarchical structures and power dynamics that they're trying to navigate within this more equitable structure, but are still absolutely prone to the same problems facing the rest of society in terms of how do we get on and how do we collaborate to create solutions, make things work. If you look at the census data in terms of representation of ethnic minorities, it's urban centred mostly, obviously not across the board, but in general, you've got London, you've got Birmingham, you've got big urban centres that are the big hubs of multiculturalism in the UK, and small rural communities that are raising money for their post office or their hydro scheme tend to be whiter communities, whiter demographics, and not just whiter, but accessing other structural privileges. So probably through the survey data, we found out, more likely to own their own home, more likely to be retired with a pension, all of the intersecting privileges on top of the ethnic angle on it. But I also, so that's the that's the data answer, right? I think it's also just reflective of the nature of the businesses and stuff. Personally, my mom was a first generation migrant in the UK. She helped run a school, a community school, to try keep some of our culture, alive and teach the language and arts and crafts and all sorts of things. That could be nowadays considered a community body by any definition. The idea that they would have the community confidence to own a building is like wild. They don't have, I would call it a sense of entitlement. A lot of the white people I've met, who I think are great, who run these schemes, have a sense of belonging and entitlement of their community assets that I think especially first generation migrants do not have. They don't feel like they deserve it. They might feel a sense of injustice, they might want to fight for equal access to resource, but community ownership, like we as a community can own an asset, wow, that is a big step for a first generation migrant community to think about. And especially if it's a former colonial country, which my mum's from, you know. So there's a mindset there that they're not used to. And I think that's personal rather than just political. But then on the other hand, I've done loads of work with loads of like minoritized communities across the UK that are acting cooperatively, are already getting on with like community type stuff and organizing and, you know, providing better access to resource and education and all sorts of services, not just for their communities, but maybe for the wider communities. And it's super inspiring. So I do think the data can be a bit blunt because, you know, it was actually 50 societies, quite a small sample. Yes, I don't think it's totally off, but I think there's a lot of really good examples of really integrated communities with lots of different backgrounds doing really cool cooperative community-based stuff that maybe just survey bias. We need to do more. Like that's what that stat told me, is that we need to go further. I think it's about distributing knowledge really equitably out there. I think the Ubele Initiative even existing is a huge step forward in terms of like that kind of Black-led infrastructure organization. Can you imagine if we could see that for other minoritized ethnicities across the country, whatever you're going to call them? So yeah, I think it's always going to be this tussle of like, how much can Cooperatives UK commit to it? And I've been really committed to that as part of Co-op UK, but absolutely there's no way Co-op UK can, it doesn't do anything on its own. It works because it's also a cooperative of lots of co-ops and membership organizations. So we need to build it from the grassroots and support the grassroots and empower them. Some of the work I've done here in Birmingham with Kajans has been really interesting. So I developed what I called sort of a pathway for them because they got in touch, interested in the training. I could tell they were, if they just applied out of nowhere, they might not have qualified for the training through this. It's quite a competitive training most years. So I don't advertise it even that widely because I tend to get more applications than I can handle year on year. But they expressed an interest, and instead of just saying, well, you don't meet the criteria, I was like, let me come out and meet you, let's talk about it. And we did a couple full day sessions to kind of build up the foundation so that then when I did open it for full applications to everyone, the applications that they put in were much better. And I just felt like there was a real route there to pursue. We'd built a bit of trust and confidence because that was a specific group, and they were, yeah, that was a bit more just kind of building up a bit of a personal relationship. And I didn't want that. I think it can be really intimidating. I've had it before where people have joined the training who come from different backgrounds, and I think, and if it's just one or two, people feel a bit isolated as well, and then they feel more like not alone, but you know what I mean, underrepresented. Like if you're the one person of color in a room full of 35 not, then you're going to feel like, do I belong here? Whereas I was really keen with the group with Kajans. I was like, let's bring you all in as a cohort. And that way you can do the homework together, you can feedback off each other and work together. And then, you know, apart from that, it's just getting out and about. And I think believing, it's quite hard, it's quite intangible. I'm quite lucky I've not had a lot of issues with my mental health. I have a loving family, even though they're all over the place and don't live anywhere near me. But unconditional love is the answer to everything. I believe it.